Hope you all are doing well. Yeah? Okay, I know I'm probably standing between you and lunch, or for some of you at least, so I'll try to make this worth your while and make sure that we have an engaging and immersive experience today. Let me just give you a little bit of background about myself before I start. I'm Jash Bajaj. By background, I'm a master's in mathematics and bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I know as soon as I say that in crowds, like the ones that are from the backgrounds here, I get a lot of different questions, but we can always discuss that later. After my graduation and post-graduation, I started working with ExxonMobil. I worked there for 8 years and worked with them across US, India, and Singapore. And I was generally involved in more strategic positions, right up to working with the president's office for the chemicals company. One of the key observations that I had, apart from many different challenges that a company at that scale faces, is the crisis that is caused due to lack of clarity in terms of what is required from people to achieve the work that they are given, which is also where I kind of saw the product at Enparadigm. I absolutely loved it and decided to come on board and kind of start doing this with them across the globe. Before I go ahead and introduce the company and then get into the topic for the day, I would actually want to know from the audience here, how many of you have experienced a simulation-based learning intervention? Show of hands. Okay, 3 of them. So how many of those were digital simulations that you saw? Great. So yeah, I just wanted to get an idea of where we all are in the room so that, when I talk about it, I can kind of modulate it accordingly. Don't worry if you've not experienced a digital learning simulation in the masterclass today. We will actually get a chance to experience that a little bit towards the end. So I'm sure some of you might be already looking forward to that, and I could see some curiosity with the tablets there. So let me just dive into the topic that we have today, which is solving the role fit challenge for the future of work and how Enparadigm can help in it. But before that, let me talk a little bit about Enparadigm itself. So who are we? We are an experiential learning and talent intelligence platform, right, that enables corporates to develop their professionals to make them future ready, right? And we do this by hyper-personalized digital and hybrid learning journeys. We have over a decade of experience in developing talent that make a difference. Currently, we are the world's #1 simulated learning platform, and we are on a mission to basically help corporate professionals be future ready, right? And when I say that, it is what we basically have as a philosophy to work and deliver our objectives. Everything we do is kind of based around having the professionals be ready for the future that they are going to face. At the same time, make everything that we do very immersive, engaging, and intuitive. Over the 12 years that we've been in this industry, we've been able to gain trust of more than 500 clients globally, and they span across industries like banking and financial services, IT products and services. They could be from your fast-moving consumer goods and durables, automotive, pharmaceuticals, and so on. Just to name a few of those, we have worked with the likes of Google, Standard Chartered, Societe Generale, Citibank, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and so on in different geographies. Okay, so before I move forward, I do get this a lot that I talk very fast sometimes. So if that happens, please ask me to slow down. I promise I wouldn't take it personally. I know that happens. But is the pace okay for everybody? Great. So with that said, let's dive into the topic for today. We are at an inflection point today, both businesses and professionals. Now, we have seen how the pandemic has affected the pace at which the change at workplaces was supposed to happen. Everybody has accelerated their digital transformation. Everybody has kind of scaled up so that they are able to work from anywhere in the world. And at the same time, there are different kinds of opportunities that have arisen because of that. So what happens when we put all these three things together? The way we look at it at Enparadigm is there are 3 key future of work drivers. And before I talk about that, I just wanted to make sure that most of us are aware here about what I mean by when I say future of work. It is essentially a combination of 3 key things. It is how we do the work, where is the work going to be done from, and then who will do this particular work, right? And so around these 3 philosophies, we kind of see 3 key changes that are going to drive the coming transformations that we see in the industry. The very first one being the digital first approach that the industries have started adopting. If you look at it, as per the Harvard Business Review, almost 86% of the firms say that they have accelerated their digital transformation process. This is, I'm sure, no surprise to most of us seeing the change that we have witnessed in our own companies. The second one being the hybrid working model. Over 90% of people today prefer working in a hybrid arrangement where they have the flexibility to work from wherever they are. And the third one being the flexible sources of income. 9 out of 10 employees are willing to add more sources of income. And I mean, who wouldn't, right? I would absolutely love to have multiple sources. So I'm sure that is pretty relatable. And then because of these opportunities or drivers that have come into picture, there are also 3 key challenges that we see people facing and also expect them to be facing in the future. The very first one of those challenges is the problem of talent demand. Now, if you look at the statistics that are available out there, 85 million unfilled vacancies by 2030 is what is expected globally in terms of talent shortage. If you look at the other part, which is the talent readiness, as of today, one in 2 role transitions fail within the first 18 months. And if you look at the talent engagement part, over 60% of the employees plan to leave their organizations within the next year. I know that's a very shocking number. The first time I saw that, I actually cross-checked it 3 times, and it is true. That is the number that is out there. And the even more surprising fact is that only 10% of these people say that they want to leave because of compensation being the main reason. So when you look at these drivers combined with the challenges, it results in a massive role fit problem that the organizations as well as the individuals are going to face, right? Now, if you look at it from the business side of things, almost 46% of new hires fail within the first 18 months. Now, I'm sure a lot of you agree how much effort goes into getting a new hire, right? You're basically trying to hunt for them, interview them, spend so much resources in kind of acquiring them and then training them, getting them on board, mentoring them and developing them. And to think that almost half of them are going to fail in the next 18 months is actually a scary thought. At the same time, if they are among the 50% that succeeded and moved on, when they get promoted, there's a chance that another 50% of them will fail in terms of the promotions that were handed out to them and how the promotions were supposed to pan out. Right now, if you look at this is a very big problem for any organization today. But on the flip side, if you look at it from the professional standpoint, 75% of the employees feel that they aren't achieving their full potential at work because of lack of learning opportunities, right? And this causes a lot of dissatisfaction in them. So when you kind of look at this from an employee's perspective, even after spending so much time and effort in developing them and then they feeling that they cannot achieve their full potential because of lack of something, it kind of disheartens them and kind of makes them take some other actions around it. The second part is almost 90% of the millennials today think that the learning content is very boring and irrelevant. And I'm using the word boring here in a formal presentation just to kind of exactly reflect how they feel about it, right? And when you look at the other 90% of the people, they say that, 90% of those people are actually not even completing the coursework that is handed out to them through the modes of e-learning or any other learning intervention, right? So this should make us wonder why this is happening and how we should kind of address it. Well, the one thing we wanted to kind of bring up here for the organizations is we wanted them to stop certain things that they do today, right? The first one being static competency frameworks. If you look at some of the roles present around you in your organization that have been grandfathered into the organization, you will realize that the competencies that were required to do that job well have probably changed less than 10% in the past 10 years. Now, compare it to the pace at which we are moving as an industry or as a geography or globally. You know, whichever context you put it in, it's a very small change. The second one is the traditional development interventions. Now, given that everyone has started to work from different places, we are based out of different geographies, the companies have gone global, the same kinds of interventions like having a 2-day workshop where we have everyone in the same room and as a team and then conduct some activities for them doesn't work anymore, right? It involves a lot of cost, it involves a lot of time commitment, and then at the same time, it may not even give the results that we wanted to kind of achieve over there. The third one is the obscure skill profiling. Now, as many of you know, a lot of the outcome depends on how well you plan things, right? And if the skill profiling in itself has a flaw in it, then there is very little chance that someone will be actually able to achieve the outcomes that they were kind of supposed to achieve. And the last one being partial role fitment assess and checks, right? So Now, this is from an individual standpoint as well as the organization standpoint. If you don't have the right kind of checkpoints for assessing and finding out where people lack, they will not, first of all, be able to develop themselves. At the same time, organizations will not know where to put their resources in helping them. So I know this sounds a little catchy and cheesy when you put it like this, right? But that was the whole idea. If there's one thing that you take away from this entire masterclass, is going to be these 4 points from my side. Now, let me also talk about how we as a company can have thought about this and put together something to help corporations achieve this. So we have developed something that we call Catalyx, Talent Intelligence Platform, right? And it is a combination of 3 intelligent engines. The first engine being the Catalyx Periscope, which is a competency profiling tool. It basically goes across the organization, combines the data, combines data from the internet, crawls through the big data, finds relevant competencies, and profiles each and every job role that is existing in a company. The second one is our assessments engine, which is called Catalyx Prism. Right. So here we are helping, once you have profiled a particular job role, this is where the Prism comes into picture to assess how well a person is fit for the job. And the third one is Catalyx Voyager, which basically provides a digital learning path for the individual basis the profiling and the assessment done. So in short, we have kind of come up with a solution that helps you assess employees for a holistic role fit, as well as then provide them with the tools to kind of achieve the role fit required to do their job well. Let me show you how we model some of these competencies so that you get an idea of what we think of when we are putting these things together. Let's take an example of a sales and account management job profile. So this is the Enparadigm's holistic sales competency model. Now, today's customer is an omni-channel customer. They have various sources to get the information as well as the products and services they are looking for. And to kind of address these customers, the salesperson also needs to build certain competencies that encompass the requirements of the customer. If you look at this particular circle, it kind of spans between the skills of business, functional, behavioral, and organizational skills. Right? Now, if you look at it, there are some soft skills like managing team, managing your stakeholders, managing your customers, as well as some of the hard skills like having market intelligence, having solution orientation, and things like that. So this is the first level of how we put it together, right? But this is not where it ends. We also dive in deeper to kind of find out some of the sub-competencies that are required to achieve each of these competencies to the right level, right? Like, for example, if you take market intelligence as one of the examples, the person needs to be having a good domain knowledge. He should be able to analyze trends. When you look at solutioning, he should be able to find the white spaces when he goes to a customer. At the same time, if it is a manager or looking after a team, he needs to know how to drive the performance as well as find the right people. Now, taking this even one step deeper, we've also highlighted some of the sub-competencies in red, which are, in our opinion, the absolute must that a salesperson should have to achieve to do their job well. If they don't have these competencies that are marked in red, there's a high chance that they will just fail in doing their job well, right? So when you look at this from the holistic perspective, what we do is that we then break it down across the roles and hierarchies. So now, if you look at a certain behavior, an account manager may not need to be a proficient person in that particular behavior, whereas a geography head maybe needs to be, right? So we take those competencies and then contextualize them for the individuals as well as the organization based on the requirements and the job requirement. And then to help people fill the gap where they find that there's a gap in terms of their role fit, we have a whole suite of digital simulations that they can do on a self-paced mode, right? So each of these simulations is anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes covering one of the competencies. So if you look at it, we cover softer skills like your emotional intelligence through the simulation M-Site. We have a shift, which is kind of telling people how to give effective feedback by, focusing on the issue and not the person, as well as cushioning it enough so that the message is not lost. but at the same time, the person doesn't leave the room confused. We have simulations around storytelling. We have, then if we look at some of the harder skills, we have simulations that cover things like negotiations, managing the sales cycle, and so on. So if you kind of look at the circle, there is pretty much all these competencies that span across business, behavioral, and functional skill sets that are covered through our digital simulations. As of today, we have more than 150 simulations, and we kind of keep adding one of them every 2 weeks, right? So that just kind of goes to show in terms of the digital offering we provide to the organizations. Let me take another example to show you how the competency mapping and at the same time the role fit assessment works. If you look at a simple BPO operations organization, they will generally have these functions. You'll have operations, you'll have sales, you will have marketing, finance, human resources. Let's take operations as a starting point. There will be different job families, like an executive, there'll be a team lead, there will be manager, general manager, deputy general manager, and then basically general manager, right? So now when you look at an executive in a BPO operations, the executive needs to have skills which are around your technical, behavioral, functional, and organizational skill sets. If you ask me, I feel like the technical and behavioral skills are the core skills that the person requires to do their job well, right? Things like call handling, data handling, communication, stakeholder engagement, and management are some of the skills that if the person doesn't have as an executive, he'll just not be able to perform. While at the same time, if he decides to stay in that function and grow, he needs to have some of the functional skills, like he needs to understand the processes, how the operations work, what kind of structures the teams follow, what to do to grow these things and drive performance. And at the same time, he needs to be the right fit for the organization so that he can actually add value, right? So that's where some of the other skills which are based on the organization's priorities come into picture. Now, across each of these competencies, you can see some of the sub-competencies here, right? And if you now go one level up above the executive to the team lead, you will see that, so if you go one level up to the team lead, you will see that the competencies kind of become a little bit more complex, even though the main buckets remain the same, because the idea is still the same. The person is going to achieve a certain thing for himself, for grow in the function, and then contribute to the organization. But there is some complexities that are developed here, right? So if you look at the things that changed versus the executive, there are these 3 or 4 things that are added, which you can see here in color. Things like data analysis. Now the team lead needs to know how to analyze the data that his executives are giving him. He needs to know how to develop solutions to help his team as well as the customers. He needs to be good at stakeholder management as well as managing his team and driving their performance, right? So now this is at the team lead level. What happens when we go one level up? If you look at a senior manager, you will see that the complexity changes drastically, right? He has to have some of the skills that his juniors had, but at the same time, he needs to have some more competencies so that he can actually deliver the performance or the growth that is expected out of him. Now that we've looked at how complexities are mapped across hierarchies and roles and how they're customized for each of the job profiles, you can see how we kind of find a role fit for each of these competencies. What we do is we will assess the individual across each of these competencies and then come up with a role fit score. In summary, our platform is essentially able to, first of all, profile the person, the competencies that are required to do their job well, and then assess them on each of those sub-competencies that are involved to kind of tell the person where they stand in terms of their role fit, in terms of how well they can do their job basis the skill set that they have. To just give you an example of how we assess each of these competencies, I'll pick one of the examples for the skill communication that I'm sure everyone here can relate to, right? So if you look at communication as a skill, it has certain indicators that need to be done well to be good in communication. You need to be an active listener, you need to be assertive, you also need to have cross-cultural sensitivity, and then a few other things. While at the same time, there are certain micro behaviors that can act as potential derailers, right? So you need to be kind of careful that you don't assume or jump to conclusions. You are reading the room. You are basically not having a confirmation bias when you're talking to people. What we do is we kind of consider both the derailers as well as the indicators of good performance, put them together in our engaging assessments that we have, and then come up with a competency score. Now, basis all the factors that I mentioned, the person will have a particular score in this competency for communication. Now, here he is 37, for example, out of 100. When you do this across competencies and add it up, that is how you get to the role fit score that I was showing you earlier. So now that I have given you some idea about what the platform looks like, and I've been talking for a long time, believe me, it is going to be only for a few more minutes before I let you guys dive into, actually experiencing it. I would like to show you some of these things in action. So just give me a second while I switch my screen, and then I will show you, out of the 3 engines, I'll be showing you Periscope on my screen, and then you will be experiencing the Prism and Voyager at your end. Periscope being the profiler, Prism and Voyager being the assessment as well as the simulation. All right? Okay, now let's change gears a little bit. I know we talked about sales, we talked about BPO operations. Now let's change gears a little bit more and look at a banking industry. In a typical banking setup, these are some of the functions that you will have. You'll have branch banking, you'll have retail banking, corporate banking, and things like that, right? So across each of these functions, you will see that there are different kinds of roles that they have. Now let's take the example of, say, a branch banking. In branch banking, we have roles that right from the customer service executive and go up to the branch banking head. If you look at someone in the middle, say for example a branch manager, now like I was mentioning earlier, he needs to have skills that are across his functional, behavioral, cultural, or organizational and technical skill sets. So when the person comes here and he's looking at the competency buckets, each of these competency buckets is going to tell him some of the skills that he needs to have. For example, visioning is something that is expected out of him as a functional skill. Now, it is not just enough for him to know the name of the skill, right? Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you just tell the name and they try to Google it, they'll find 1,500 different definitions of that and it'll just confuse them. So at the same time, what we do is we kind of also show them what is expected out of them in terms of this competency, what is expected out of them in terms of achieving the competency itself, and then where they stand in terms of the industry average as well as in terms of what the expectation for the job profile is. And this spans across multiple competencies here, right? So these are some of the examples of the functional competencies. Now, if you at the same time go to, say, for example, behavioral, there'll be some other competencies that he needs to master at a certain level, and this will be shown here. And then he can again go down and kind of understand what is expected out of him, right? So when you have this kind of clarity in what is expected out of you in terms of your behaviors and skills, it becomes very easy to know what you have to do. But at the same time, you still need some help in assessing yourself, right? Which is where the digital assessments come into picture. So he can basically go on assess and then assess himself on our platform, which is going to be your Prism. Now, what I have here is the same screen that you will all have on your tablets. Now, I will, and for the tables that do not have a tablet, unfortunately, you'll have to kind of experience this on the phone. I know from personal experience that the experience changes drastically based on the size of the screen sometimes, so please bear with me. But you have QR codes on your table for the people who are going to do it on their own devices. You can scan those QR codes and it will lead you to this page. Is everyone able to see this page on the tablets as well as the screens? We'll just give people a minute so that they can use their phones to kind of get here. Okay, so all good? It should be in the Chrome browser on your tablets. Anyone facing any issues? If you are, then just raise your hand. My team here will kind of come by and help you. Oh, no. Hold on, she'll come back to give you a QR code. Okay. All right, so once you're at this page, kindly enter your email IDs here, press submit. Your email ID preferably work is better. It should lead you to the screen. Once you fill out the details here, it should bring you to this web page. Is everyone with me till here? Okay. So now this is how the platform greets you. It starts by showing you your learning path. In this case, if you look at it, it is giving you a learning path for branch manager assessment basis the competencies that we saw earlier. Now what we've done here is these assessments are actually a little more intensive and situation based, but to kind of keep this class short and not take your full day, we've cut it down to kind of just give you an idea of how it works. So you can start the assessment from here, and it should show you your module, right? So I request you to start this module. It generally takes 4 to 5 minutes to finish. So maybe I'll give you like 5 to 7 minutes to kind of finish this, and then we'll come back. Also, please, you can use your earphones. That will be more helpful for the next part of it, but then you can probably just do it right away. Anyone facing any issues? Please raise your hands. Once you finish your assessment, it will bring you to this page. I just want you to kind of take a pause here without clicking anything else so that I can just show you a couple of things. So once you reach this screen, you can download the report or show the assessment report. I'll just wait for some more of you to finish, then maybe I'll show it. So 24 out of, I believe, 43 people have completed it so far. We are waiting for a few more to complete so that I will kind of show you what the report looks like and things like that. Okay, so 35 people have completed the assessment. So I guess at this point I can just probably go ahead and show what the report looks like. At the same time, you can probably finish the last parts of your assessment. One of the things I wanted to highlight is you can probably realize how in real time we were able to find out how many of you are at which stage of your assessments, right? And this is the kind of power we bring with our tools for the organizations as well. You don't have to like wait for people to come back to you and kind of give you these updates. So now once you get to the screen and you click on either download report or show assessment, it will provide you with this report, right? And if you look at this, it is going to tell you the introduction of the assessment. And then how do you interpret this particular report itself? It will define your competencies here. And then it is going to now finally show you what your score was. Right? At the same time, it is also going to give you a snapshot of how you do with respect to different competencies. And then and it's going to kind of give you a breakdown of where you stand in each of these micro behaviors, and then tell you what you need to do as development inputs in terms of when you want to get to the appropriate level. Right, so just wanted to kind of quickly give you a snapshot of that before we move on to the next step. Okay, so once, I should not have closed. In case anyone faces issues like that where you're logged out or thrown out of the system for any reason, you can just always go back, put in the same details, and it will pick up from where you left off. So now when you're at this screen, if you click on go back to the learning path in your browsers, it should have opened something called a path A or a path B. Is everyone able to see this on their screens? Okay, so when you were at the assessment, if you click on go back to learning path, yeah, so it's here at the bottom. It will be at the bottom. Is everyone with me? Is everyone with me till here? So basis whatever your assessment was, you will be either assigned a path A or a path B, depending on the kind of skill sets you need to go through. And then when you click start here, it is going to take you through the modules that it wants you to go through, right? And here we've kind of again tried to cut down the original version to a very like a 5 to 7 minute experience. So you can only the first one is unlocked here. So you can click start on that and go through that. Okay, this is also the part where you'll need the earphones. Is anyone facing any issues? Please raise your hand. Okay, Divya, how many have completed? Okay. So in an ideal world, I would have wanted all of you to kind of complete it and so that we can go to the next step. But I do also have to kind of give some time back to the event organizers. So what I'll do is you can probably just pay attention here for a couple of minutes, and I will kind of just take you to the last aspect of the platform I wanted to show you, and I'll then open for questions. And while I'm answering the questions and you want to still continue playing, you can still continue doing that, right? Does that sound okay with everybody? Great. So the last thing I wanted to kind of show here, Lionel, can I have the screen? Thanks. Yeah, the last thing I wanted to kind of show here was the talent hub that kind of tells the individual more and more insights about themselves as and when they keep spending time on this platform. Right now, here are going to be some of the, so if you look at the same role, the branch manager, and I hope it is visible to people at the back, is it? Can you guys see it or should I zoom in? No? One sec. So now if you look at the role of a branch manager again, this is some dummy data that we filled in here. The reason is because any of you have not spent enough time on the platform for you to have actual insights. At the same time, the cohort was too small to kind of, put all the things together. Like we saw here, it was not completed. So this is something that we just wanted to show you. So we've used some dummy data here. Basis how much time Jacob has spent on the platform and depending on the assessments that he has done and the modules that he's gone through, it is going to tell him what is industry average, his current score, and the ideal score for each of these competencies, right? Now, when he does that, there's also some other things like, having some certifications and things like that, that if you want to award your employees for doing certain courses, you can award that here. They can also check their progress in terms of, what are the essentials that they have that they need to be kind of doing and where they stand in terms of their requirements. Then there's some social aspect to it, which, because we are a gamified learning company at the end of the day, right? So games are not that fun when you don't have competition. So there's also certain social aspects of it. You can kind of see the leaderboards, you can kind of get badges as and when you kind of complete certain amount of things. And all of these things are something that can be customized for every company and basis their requirements or not even have them, depending on the culture, right? But it is there. So they can also kind of recommend trainings to people. They can kind of, it's like a social media for learning, a little platform around that to build some more insights. And then here is where they will have all the resources of things they've completed. So in case they have done an assessment, they can kind of come here and either download or show their report. Whereas if they've finished a simulation, and for whoever has finished the simulation, they can probably relate to this, you're able to get your report, and then you can also rewatch the videos. So all of those things are kind of handily available to them on this platform. Right, so that's just a very brief overview of the platform that I wanted to take you through and kind of discuss how we can address the role fit challenge that the companies will face in the future. With that said, I am open to taking a few questions. Some of them maybe I'll have to take offline outside the session because of the time constraint, but I'm still open to taking a couple of them at least. Any questions? Sure, please.
Yeah, the question that I asked. Morning, everyone. So my question will be more of the algorithm behind this application. We were playing just now with those questions, the 3 areas and all those. But I guess what's important is the kind of questions that's in there. How do you do the profiling and all those? So my questions would be, who does that? Is it your company, or is it the company that engages you to do this? And secondly is, those questions, I suppose, cannot be static in a way, because as a company grows, as your business dynamics change, the profiling of certain people may change as well.
Right.
Yeah, so how do you go about, because this, I don't think it should be a very fixed and static application. Yeah, so it's more of the, what goes on behind. Thank you.
Then thank you so much for asking that question. You're actually on point in kind of, giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this, right? So let me answer your first question first on who develops this, right? So like I mentioned, we've been in this industry for over a decade now, right? With that, and we've worked across industries. We have a very good understanding of each of the companies. What we do is we combine these understandings that we have, we work, and whatever we've learned from the companies we've worked with, and then the experience of our panel members and each of the panel members that are actually the subject matter experts in designing these things will have more than 15 years of corporate experience. They will be certified subject matter experts in the fields that they're designing this content around, right? So it's a combination of things that helps us put together the first insight that we are coming to with. Now, when I say the first insight, what does that mean? Now, the platform that you looked at here for a branch manager, for example, right? Or even the BPO executive, the skill sets that were mapped. That is the first insight we will bring in to you. And if you're okay with it, we are good to go and roll it out. But at the same time, now we understand every organization is different. Everyone's needs are different, right? So we can actually customize that to fit your company and your industry and your culture. So it is customizable, but at the same time, it is not a blank slate where you have to kind of start from scratch and figure things out. We can come with what we think is the best fit, basis our understanding of your company and your industry. Then we can kind of modify things that's per your need. So that is the number one part on how we build some of these things. The second part of it is, how do we keep this updated? So all of these engines, like I mentioned, are AI engines that we have, right? So if you look at the very first one, which is the competency profiler, and I do have a slide around it, but I'll kind of skip it for now in respect of time. But if you look at that particular competency profiler itself, what it is doing is, even though when we have decided and put it as a static thing for a certain time, at the back end, it is always going to crawl the web and go through the big data, go through websites like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, LinkedIn, Talent Insights, some of the other job portals and things like that, go through people's profiles, and then pick the descriptions from there, the competencies that they're kind of showcasing in the jobs that they're doing, put it all together and keep updating itself in terms of what is the most relevant thing that is required for a particular job role as per the industry standards. Having said that, again, it comes to you with a suggestion, right? Or rather to us in this particular case with a suggestion. We can customize it basis our understanding of your company and industry. And then if the company wants to customize it further, we can always kind of make it fit their requirements. Does that answer your questions? I think the third one you asked was the assessments should not be static. I think you meant from the competency standpoint, not the assessment itself, right? Because I'm sure you saw that the assessments are also very situation based. They're not, yes or no, or I would like to do this better versus I would like to do this less kind of a thing. It is more like what you would do in a situation like that, and basis your answers over there, it is kind of modifying its flow and trying to assess you right. Any other questions? I'll just take maybe one more. Just hold it. Okay, got it. We can probably take it in the Q&A section right outside the room because the other session needs to start and they're probably late enough. All right, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I know the conversation was kind of cut short, but hope you also enjoyed the same. You are free to take the earphones with you, tablets not so much. We have to return those. But yeah, I'll be standing outside. We can have discussions around some of the questions that I was not able to answer here today. And I really hope that it was worth your while. Thank you so much.